Brian's coming.
Did you get one?
Do you want?
I got.
I got this one.
You got? Or,
Yeah, there's some. No, there really isn't any info. I ran some of that through the Xerox machine.
You got one?
On toner.
Heath, or fire
So it
engine.
spit out some lousy copies. So I just recycled the paper. That, I gave you that last business meeting. Hey, has the mayor got a current copy?
One here.
Back any better?
I think you said that they.
That made it.
Okay, there's the spare.
You haven't been on very long, 24 hours or
Just took my first dose about 3 hours ago.
okay, well, you'll be talking out of your head here.
Okay.
Oh. Yep.
Okay, 5:30.
10 seconds.
It's all yours. Very good. Good evening.
Mr. Johnson over here.
Do you want to wait on him? Or? Okay. Very good. May statistics. There's a little bit of change. You would change if you don't have the current copy. The EMS transports for 2013, the total should be 816. I know your other sheet said 600. So that was a
653.
right. The correct number is 816. Let's see, and then mutual aids received. There was, and these were my fault on typos. Mutual aids received. You had 15. There was 12 fire and 3 EMS instead of 13. Okay. Other than that, it should be about correct. So anyway, May statistics. 38 and 38, 2012, 2013, 168 in 2012, 170 in 2013. So we're tracking online for last year. EMS runs a little bit different, 169 versus 158, but 752 versus 816. EMS transports are one off, 96, 81 transports this year, but 452 to 453. Mutual aids that were requested. Last time we did 57. We gave 57 for the month of May. 18 were fire calls. 39 were EMS calls, and there's kind of the breakdown. I just gave the biggest share of the departments, whatever. York got 44 of that 57. Hebron 2, Fire Company, that's Licking Township Fire Company, which is Jacksontown, and Buckeye Lake, and there was one for Mary Ann that wasn't included. It was a hazardous material call, had a car in the water, and they rolled the hazmat truck out of Station 1. Buckeye Lake, one of those was a reported drowning or a distress in the water, and that was a rescue team call, so that was, but we still rolled the trailer out of Station 1. Mutual aids received 15 and 3. Newark got 12 of those. Coming into the city, Hebron 4. Area evac had one call. We brought them in on a traumatic injury early May. A car on top of a man and drug him down the hill over on Watson Road. So those are the mutual aids. Any questions on that? Have a marathon gave us a check for $800 for fire equipment and such. They try every year to give us something. I'm requesting that it was deposited into the general fund and requesting that legislative request that we transfer that out, put it in fire levy 1, and I'm getting some costs on either a piece of foam firefighting equipment or some additional foam concentrate. So that's a legislative request, and take it out of the general fund and put it back in the fire levy.
You said that check's been deposited?
As of today, I brought it in and gave that
Oh,
to
okay.
City Hall, so. And Denise earmarked it for general fund. So we'll take all of those that we get. Hi, Ron. How are you, man? Monthly expenses, there was 3 pays in the month of May. 2012 wages, 65,998, 84. Overtime 12, you can read it. Total year 77. May 2013 wage was 97,000, 97.68. That's because 3 days. Overtime 19,692.70, and we're up a little bit over this time last year, 83,558.87. Under equipment, Tower 10, the continuing saga, Tower 10 needed some tweaking and lubrication and some things that over and above Cause, and then of course Cause was off for a while with the death of his dad, and it was kind of a long drawn out affair. His stepmother had left town with the kids, and anyway, it took a little while to get Mr. Kozlowski buried and such. But while he was gone, we were having some problems with the rotation on the tower, and the big deck gun on the bucket wasn't working properly, so we called Connellsville, had Finley Fire come in and do some repair work on that, and it's functioning currently. Engine 2, we got it back, what was that, Friday afternoon. It had been out of service about 2 weeks with everything that's got computers in it. Hard to fix sometimes. And this time it ended up being a hole in the fuel line that was sucking a little bit of air, and that sent a signal that made the computer do funny things, and a sensor that was tied into the parking brake that didn't allow something to interface, and threw things off, and you'd be driving down the road and the truck would just fall on its nose, have no power or whatever. The computer wasn't getting the proper signal. So anyway, it just took them a while to be able to, about 2 weeks, to duplicate what it was doing. And I have not received a bill on that yet, but it's not going to be cheap. It was about $600 to fix the tower. We have Engine 2's exhaust system. And this is the first exhaust system I'm aware of we have ever had to replace on any fire apparatus either. It's going to be to the tune of about $1,600. Parts are ordered for it, but it's rotted out from the manifold clear back. And I don't have an explanation other than the metal that they're using in the exhaust system right now. But like I said, I've never been aware of us having to replace exhaust systems like that, and for them to be that rotted. So that's one that we're waiting on the parts, and Captain Kozlowski will be, who's back, will repair that. Personnel, nothing other than Brian Hoffman, his father-in-law, has had brain surgery and had a brain tumor and had some surgery and has been returned back to their house or whatever. So between he and his wife, they're taking care of him. So he's been in and out and been off. And I don't know how that's going to play over the next couple months. So there's some sick time involved there. Training, marathon tour, solar energy emergencies. Gentleman came in the other day and was supposed to come in this week and give us some discussion on, of course, the solar panels and things, that's just something else that we have to deal with if we have a structure fire of some sort. The only place we currently have solar panels is over at AEP on their roof assembly, but there's electrical issues with those, and of course, if they're involved in a fire or whatever, so we're supposed to get some specialized training on that. Old business, the only thing I've got is fire levy and truck replacement. And that's, I'll just keep reminding you on that. We'll go from there. I don't have any other new business. And other than that, any questions?
Nobody?
Tim, I mentioned, I know there was some discussion last time about cost, as far as, yeah, levy, and there is, because there's already names on the ballot and all that, so we only paid it once. I think we talked about that at council.
Under other, first of all, thanks to Deb and Doug for coming to the meeting on May 30th, where Jonathan Downs was here to discuss various aspects involving the process of how a fire district is created. I thought he and Deb and Doug maybe can fill in some gaps on this, but I thought that he did a good job of providing information to everyone who was there about the process, about the steps that you take, what's first, what's second, what's third. His information sparked some, I thought, good questions by the people who attended. We had Hebron, mayor, village administrator, and council represented. We had Buckeye Lake, mayor. Did they have an administrator too, in Buckeye Lake?
No, I don't believe so.
I know there were council members that were there from Buckeye Lake. Granville Township was represented by a trustee and their chief. Licking Township was represented by a trustee and their chief. Union Township was represented by one trustee. And that's about everybody, I think.
There are two council.
Yeah. And Chief Huggins was there.
Primarily it was,
Two people from the
it was I thought he gave a lot of good information. It was not something that he was there to answer questions. He was more or less there to present, I thought,
spout out information.
Yeah.
information, and the questions can be answered and a follow-up on what has to be done.
Yeah, there's clearly a ton of questions along all angles of this question, of this concept for everybody that's involved. What was made clear is that the next step for governmental entities interested in exploring this concept is that the legislative bodies of those entities need to pass resolutions. So I am going to propose that this body consider two resolutions that will need to be drafted, hopefully, and be on the council agenda for a week from tonight. The first being that we are interested in exploring the idea of a fire district and having a basically a task force, a committee created consisting of representatives from like-minded governmental entities. That committee primarily would be responsible for overseeing the completion of an analysis done by a third party as to the feasibility of a fire district in this area. The second resolution then would be supporting that we would support a grant application to the Government Innovation Fund, where we would partner with other governmental entities and request grant money to help pay for that study and analysis to be completed. So there'd be two separate resolutions. Hebron, I believe, has had 2 weeks ago had a first reading of a similar resolution. I am going to propose that David Morrison draft these two resolutions, as I said, so that we could have first reading on the 17th, second reading, and then your vote consideration on July 1st.
Second resolution would be to, can you give me, there some entity names or grant names?
Sure. To work with other interested governmental entities in applying for the Government Innovation Fund grant money.
Did Cliff send you the verbiage on what he did?
Yeah.
I really like.
And I think they're gonna. I think they took a one resolution approach. I think a two resolution approach is a little cleaner. Probably gets the job done, but I just think a two resolution approach is probably cleaner for that.
I like Johnson's suggestion that you form that smaller group, it's a working group, and really investigate before you enter into something and commit yourself, because I think that way you'll have all the information and know if it's best for the city.
Yeah.
So it made a lot of sense.
I mean, really, we're to the point where there are a number of entities that are interested in this concept, who are interested in taking a further look at it to see if it would make sense. So I think we're to the point now that we need to actually have somebody working on this. We need to have some firm, some group, some third party, working on an analysis of this concept for this area. How would it be structured? What would the manpower be? Where would the locations be starting out? What would the cost be starting out? These are just a handful of the myriad of questions involved in this. We're not going to get any answers to those until we have somebody actually starting to look at this and break it down.
So ultimately, we wouldn't be committing to any sort of fire district. What we're committing to is just to put a committee together and then go out and apply for funding, a grant of some sort, to fund that committee to do basically the footwork to bring it back to the table and say, is this or is this not worth doing? So
Yep. Essentially,
there would be no cost to the city to do it if we can be awarded the grant funds at this point.
Correct. Would the grant cover 100% of the cost of the committee's job? You can't say that right now. I don't even know how much it could maybe cost to have a study like this done. So the committee would have, obviously the committee I think would have to get an idea of that and then come to the governments to say, here's how much we think this thing would cost, so you're going to want to apply for X dollars in the grant. The idea would be that you would have grant money that would cover all of the costs, but I don't know what the grant specs are for that grant and if it can cover 100% of the costs. So that those are all things that would need to be looked at by the committee. And then obviously if there were costs that the city would incur to look at it, well then we'd have to consider that. This body would have to approve that expenditure. It was discussed in the meeting on the 30th that there's been one or two other, I don't even know if you call them full-blown studies, but at least looks into this type of idea. Union Township paid for one, such effort, I don't know how many years ago. So, I mean, this idea is not something that's that hasn't been looked at or at least thought of before. So that's my recommendation is that this council will consider those resolutions.
Anybody have any questions from there?
Should I bring up what we discussed earlier today, or hold off?
Let's hold off.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll hold off on that until we get down the road a little bit.
Ready? Chief, you have anything else?
Not right now, thank you.
Anybody else for the chief?
Thank you. There is a legislative request, though.
I have it ready. Oh, thank you. Okay, we'll move along.
Excuse me, I've got to go to
Another meeting.
Chief, were you going to mention this thing on the back of this agenda, or was this just?
Well, to be honest with
Scrap
the mayor,
paper.
I was scrapping, recycled some
It's
paper that
recycled
didn't.
paper.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Well,
Because
what
this
is
is an
that?
email of May 8th, a letter of attaboy for Brian and Doug.
Yeah, he went over that in our last meeting.
Okay.
Oh, in May. Yeah,
was just
this is
stuff.
June.
This was just
Okay,
scrap
thank
paper
you.
that I was
Jeez. All right.
For a fire truck.
recycling,
Same for a fire truck.
Yeah, trying to. Did you get your memo about Thursday's meeting being canceled or whatever? Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you. Good night.
Right.
This is an extra one,
Do you have
I guess, on
an extra
fire.
agenda by chance?
I do, I have several. And for those that have one through email, there's revisions on
You
that.
got police?
Well, additions. Because I didn't have the overtime and the alarm count Friday.
No.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah.
Does everybody have what they need? All right, Chief Shepherd, floor is yours.
All right, for the month of May, calls for service 1,516, 185 reports taken, 57 arrests, 29 accidents, and 80 citations. And 11 of those were during the Click It or Ticket campaign for seatbelts. We used $16,709 in overtime, and year-to-date, $48,594. We had 37 false alarms, 35 of them were commercial, 2 residential. I have 2 legislative requests. The first one is a request to appropriate from within the Law Enforcement Trust Fund $680 to send Lieutenant Mason to the 2013 CALIA Conference. It's being held in Columbus on July 31st. So fortunately,
Is that a national conference?
yes. So we won't have any of the side issues such as housing and meals.
You didn't get to go to Hawaii?
Not this time.
Anybody have questions about that? Committee, we okay with that? I'll take that, Chief.
All right.
Let me sign it first.
And while that's going around, I'll start on the second one. And it's a request to appropriate $5,688, also from within the Law Enforcement Trust Fund, to purchase 27 Glock Model 22 pistols and 5 Glock Model 27. And this is to replace and upgrade our current inventory. We wanted to keep about a half a dozen of them, the old ones for training. They'll serve us well with simunitions, which is training ammunition. And They could also serve as a backup firearm in case one needs to be repaired. If you read the memo I attached, the firearm staff made a recommendation that we replace all our sidearms, which are all Glocks. These Glocks are very old as handguns, particularly automatic, semi-automatic handguns go. Glock being one of the most dependable and most sought after firearms, at least in law enforcement. They've well lived beyond their expectations, but these kind of failures can certainly get one of us hurt. And there are repair kits, but the cost is so similar to what new firearms would be. We pay more in overtime to have my two armorers make all those replacements. So our recommendation is to purchase these new Generation 4 Glock pistols, what we have, or Generation 2 and 3, and have a brand new firearm with a warranty. And of course, the Generation 4 has some upgrades that cannot be retrofitted to Generation 3.
Chief, what's the difference between a 22 and a 27?
The 27 is a subcompact. I have one on my side right now, and those are typically for command staff and investigators, the small frame. Okay. And the 22 is the full size model.
Okay. All right. When you do your range work, and when you do your qualification, sessions, but that's yearly, that's done, right?
Well, it's done. No, it's done more than that. We're required to.
No, I mean the qualification. Is that done yearly?
It's done twice yearly.
Okay, all right.
The law only requires once, but we do it twice.
Okay. Do the officers not use their own sidearms for that testing?
No.
For the qualifications and for the range work that they do in practice?
No, whatever you carry is what you qualify with. For example, I have my own Glock 22.
Okay.
And so I carry my own, and now, because of the failures that are occurring, for the short time I'll still be here, I'll probably get one of the new ones.
Okay. I guess the reason why I was asking is because in the memo, they're suggesting that 5 of the existing 22s be kept. Mm-hmm. And that the 5 retained Glocks would be available for simunitions training, mm-hmm, and additional issue or backup should a weapon need to be placed out of service.
Right.
And that's why I was wondering, they don't train with the sidearm that they carry all the time?
No,
it would be okay to use one of these 5 for training?
Right. I've got 2 armors, and unless it passed their inspection, they wouldn't remain in inventory at all, even for simunition training.
Okay.
And we don't want to use we don't like to use our regular issued firearms for simunition training.
Okay.
They already got it pretty bad.
Okay. So the sights are the same on them, the feels the same. I mean, everything about them is exactly the same as the one that they carry on their belt when they're on duty.
Right now, there's subtle differences between a Generation 4 and a Generation 3, but for training purposes, simunition particularly, simunition training is not just shooting at a target. It's used in real combat type scenarios. It actually fires a small projectile.
Okay.
So the officers have to wear face guards or helmets.
Okay.
What caliber are they?
40.
40 caliber?
40 caliber. One of the 40 caliber is pretty hot round and
Now, that's the Glock 22, it's a 40 caliber?
yes, so it's
And what about
27.
the 27?
27 is a 40 caliber.
Okay.
The one improvement they made was in the recoil system on the 40 caliber. It's pretty snappy round and tends to raise the muzzle. So, according to the manufacturer and reports I've read, the shooter improves with this new model. There's less recoil. There's less rise in the muzzle, I should say. The recoil will remain the same, but it's more of a pushback than it is a rise. Yeah.
Jeff, you have a question?
I see one vendor. We're gonna get more than one bid? Is this a state bid kind of
It's
thing
not.
or not?
It's not a state bid, but it's below the threshold, and we have always used Vance's. Is it from Vance's?
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
Buckeye Outdoors is owned by Vance's as well.
Right.
But we've always found that we get our best prices there. As far as firearms,
When's the last time we purchased something?
well, we buy ammunition from them, we buy parts.
And we're always keeping them honest by checking other people's prices, right?
I'd like to think so, but I mean,
Just in the consideration
Yeah.
of spending taxpayer dollars
Yeah.
here. I always like to see more than
You-
one bid. I always.
when it comes to firearms, you're not gonna find any difference in the pricing.
Why is that?
Why is-
I don't know, it's
Sounds like it's a
more of a
state
trend
bid.
than anything,
Well, that is a state bid.
particularly when it comes to law enforcement pricing.
So it is a state bid.
No, I don't know of any state contract, no.
Okay.
They have special pricing for law enforcement, though.
Yes, yeah, there's a law enforcement price, the manufacturer even has a
We
law
could-
enforcement price.
An individual
couldn't
might,
buy-
I
you
couldn't
couldn't
buy
buy
the
one.
same, for the same price.
It's not a question of that, it's a question of.
Well, the memo here says it says top trade-in price, so they obviously must have checked somewhere to get
Yeah, they
top
checked.
trade-in, so they probably checked other places
Right.
who would give them.
That's why I
the
said
best
I'd like to
trade-in,
think
so-
so.
I just don't, we
Yeah.
just didn't get the details.
Yeah.
It's just very summary.
It sounds like they probably called around.
Yeah.
I thought that
No,
was pretty
they-
good compared to what you're
They
paying.
know to shop, we did the same thing with the rifles. We went to several manufacturers and got the best price we could find.
And you want to take this up,
Yes,
and you want to take this out of the law enforcement trust fund?
yes. I'm sure you, just as well I did.
Now, are you facing ammunition shortage that the general public does?
Yes. But we receive some priority. We made sure we ordered earlier this year than we typically do.
Dick, you okay with it? Doug? Anybody else have questions about that resolution? Go ahead, chief.
And it's, oh, one last thing, you'll see a trailer, about the size of the race car trailer out back. That's a mobile classroom from the Attorney General's office, and with it comes free training.
On what?
This first one will be firearms training.
Thank you, AG.
Your tax dollars at work.
Anything else, chief?
Hey, are you somewhat aware of the legislation? I don't believe it's been voted on. Well, maybe it has. On the these internet cafe deals
Senate
and
Bill 7.
things like that. Yeah.
takes effect, I think, the end of July.
Okay, all right. Are there any changes, regulation-wise, policy-wise, anything for the city of Heath? Any regulation changes that we need to make in accordance with that legislation?
No, I think they're effectively outlawed.
Okay,
Shut them down, right?
Yeah.
okay. I wasn't sure if there was,
Yeah.
if we had to do something on the local end too.
No, but I'm sure that we'll be asked to prorate, but there's no, if you look at the initial ordinance that was written, there's no, we don't have to give.
There's no provision for
There's no
such.
provision for that, so, just in case you're asked,
They're,
before I am.
they're SOL.
Yes, they are SOL.
And it would outlaw the internet cafes.
It would. They are now. As a matter of fact, there was a moratorium on adding more since last year. So the writing was on the wall.
Yeah.
I read something about, somebody was really concerned if this was gonna really affect senior citizens, because that was kind of their social gathering.
Yeah. I mean, that's, you swear you're in a bingo hall if you ever go in there. Actually, we've never had any problems with them, and it's always been old folks that are in there.
Never, no, I just wasn't there.
Yeah, we've never had a problem one with them.
Definitely was.
Well, he's old.
What kind of revenue we get out of that?
Let's see, we had to, they filed a,
Yeah, we backed off on.
yeah, we had to negotiate with them. It was 2,500.
Yeah, they were asking for our home
I asked for
addresses
5
and
and-
kids' names,
Yeah,
spouse's name.
yeah. The original ordinance specified 5,000.
Yeah. And how many machines did they have?
Well, they still had to pay per machine. They had plenty of them, like around 100.
Wasn't it like $50 a machine or something? I think it was $50 a machine.
I think that's right.
Mm-hmm. 20,
Yeah.
25, maybe.
And $2,500 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
pretty stiff.
It was a pretty good check.
Thanks, Chief.
Any other questions for Chief? Mr.
Well,
Moore?
I got a question.
Okay.
Any news on 30th Street opening, the railroad track?
Depends on asphalt.
What's that?
Asphalt company, plant didn't run today, so they couldn't get asphalt to do
Is
the
it
road.
still closed?
Is
Wait
this a
for
holiday?
Huh?
Is this a holiday?
When you're down to one
What are we
asphalt
doing?
plant, they decide
Free
there's
today.
not enough volume to do, they don't open, so you're at their mercy.
I'll
It's
update
kinda
our
like the railroad
Facebook
track, was that our,
post.
you know?
We had
Because it was raining.
2,000, I want to say we had about 2,300 views of this on the city's Facebook page of our post that 30th Street was going to be closed. When did I do that? Did I do that Wednesday? I think I did that Wednesday. And we had like 2,300 views of that Facebook post on the city's Facebook page, which by far is the most views that we've had on anything that we've posted. So I think we're up to about a little over 200 people who've liked the page. So they get, whenever we post something, they get it. So. All right, I'll update that post then, I guess.
Chief, did you have
So is it
anything?
just closed until there's asphalt?
Just that I.
They get asphalt, they get asphalt put in and everything else, then it'll be open back up.
Wait a second.
Then we'll have to wait until whenever Kikosi goes back in to do the sidewalks and the curb and stuff like that.
Yeah.
All Those are gonna do some sidewalk stuff.
I think railroad tracks, I didn't go look at it, but as far as I know, the railroad tracks are in, and they got a hole between they took out the other set of tracks. So they got a hole.
Yeah.
You got the asphalt, you got tracks, you got nothing, you need asphalt, you get it.
Where's your 608?
Is that right?
I do want to say Kikosi did a nice job of making that a smooth transition.
Love the video.
New.
That was great.
Isn't that cool? 17-year-old kid.